You want a podcast? Welcome to Flute 360, the podcast that reminds you everything is connected. I'm Dr. Jay Begay, flutist, educator, creative entrepreneur, and follower of Christ. Here, we explore the full circle, the 360 of your life as a musician. Because who you are as a person shapes who you are as an artist. And the lessons you learn outside the practice room are just as vital as the hours with your flute in hand. From health and spiritual growth to artistry and career fulfillment, this space is where it all intersects. Come as you are. There's a seat for you at the Flute 360 table. Today's episode is episode 360, and it's titled Closing a Creative Chapter with Intention, a Flute 360 Reflection. Hey friend, welcome back to Flute 360. Before we dive in, I just want to gently say this. Today's conversation is a meaningful one. It's about something we don't talk about enough as musicians. How we know when a chapter has run its course and how to step into a pause with intention instead of fear. In this episode, I'm joined by my husband, Jay Begay, who's been behind the scenes of this podcast from the very beginning. Together, we're talking about creative seasons, milestones, ending versus pauses, and what it looks like to honor something fully without rushing to replace it. This conversation holds a lot of meaning for us, and I'm really glad you're here for it. Let's jump in. Hey there, guys. Welcome to the 360th Flute 360 podcast episode. It brings me so much joy and delight to be sitting here with my husband, who is not only my life partner, but who has been the producer and audio engineer of Flute 360 these past 7 years. And we have some exciting news to share. Before I do, thank you so much, Eric, for being here. And we're going to talk today about the lessons we've learned, how we've grown, things in the future that we are looking towards, and anything that else pops up in our conversation. So thank you for carving out time yet again to be with me, to support me. And I love that about you.
No, you're welcome. Yeah, definitely great to be here. It is the big 360, and we are making big plans. And that probably includes what's going to happen with the podcast, what we're going to do going forward. And that's a lot of surprising details that we can unpack here in the podcast. So I wanted to ask you, what are your plans?
What is that unfolding?
Of the 360?
Yeah. So I never saw this being my statement, and I never saw this being true for Flute 360. Even a year ago, we knew, 50 episodes out, we are getting close to the 360th episode. What will our plans be? I was thinking partying up on some Dallas skyscraper and restaurants galore. And of course, it's fun to dream big. And I saw myself continuing even past the 360th episode. But times have changed. Seasons have changed. And the Lord has really been prompting on my heart to pause for some time. And it's not necessarily that my Flute 360 brand goes away. It's not that necessarily my students, the Accelerator program, and my other coaching offerings go away. That is still going to be running very much in the front of my business. But the announcement is I am taking a massive pause on the production of the Flute 360 podcast episodes. And that's the news that I never saw myself sharing. I never saw myself coming to this point because I love producing podcast episodes. I love having conversations, meeting new friends, and showing up and sharing these ideas with the flute community. But life has a very unique way of unfolding, and life is a mystery. So it's super neat to be at this point in this season of my life, to notice that a change is among us. Change is being asked of us in different fronts in our different businesses. And I'm feeling called to cultivate new businesses, new ideas, new relationships. And I'm definitely stepping into a new season of my life where I don't have all the answers right now. I'm very much waiting. I was about to say the word patiently, but I'm not always the most patient person. I am doing my very best to patiently wait on the Lord for Him to reveal what this next season will look like. And Eric has been doing such a fantastic job of being my best friend and listening to my temper tantrums at times, me throwing a fit in the sense of like crying because I don't like not knowing what the future holds. Because, I mean, let's face it, I'm very much a type A person. I like being in control. But I've learned through business, and I've learned being a teacher, like if I were to coach someone else going through a similar season, I would have them focus on the present, and I would have them get excited for the mystery of tomorrow. And sometimes it's easier said than done, especially when this space means so much to me. And we're stepping into something new, and I know that God is so good, and He will probably, knowing Him and how He orchestrates everything, knowing Him, He will probably most likely blow our minds with what the future does hold. And only He can orchestrate that together. So there's a pause on the production of the podcast, but there is definitely not a pause among the Flute 360 offerings in my business. But that's the big announcement. And we want to start with that announcement up front in our conversation, because then I think the rest of our dialogue will unfold naturally from that standpoint.
Right. Now, I think it's interesting how not knowing what's going to happen is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It could also be very scary, but it's exciting because, you know, you're leaving the door open for something to happen. Of course, in hopes of good things to happen. And that's all we have in our mind. That's all we can hope for is good things to happen. And I've seen it time and time again with a lot of my clients, working with them privately or through independent contracting work. A lot of these people come online with their podcast and announce, hey, we're stopping because of this. And it's always because there's bigger plans behind it. There's always a change in the business where the founder, the host, usually is making a change in the business, in the model, or they're taking on a whole gargantuan project that's going to take them away from it. And time again, like I said, it's interesting because they don't know what's going to happen too. One of my biggest clients had one of the biggest trading shows ever. And he was diving into taking on the business himself in trading. And he decided to step away and have somebody else take over the podcast. That happens too. And another one was they just shut it all down altogether. And it still lives in the library, but it's not being produced. But the interesting and fun thing about it was what they were doing afterwards. They're following their dreams because this part of the business was tying their hands down from growing even further and moving about into a different time in their life where they wanted to grow in a different way. And that's the big thing. And so you have 360 episodes to look back on and say, these are the things that I've grown through and others have helped me through. Of course, your guests, and the changes are significant. What you've understood up to now and how the market is and how the audience is and how you want to make those changes in yourself, in your business, and the trajectory of your business. Those are all exciting things to be excited for. Of course, yeah, it might be scary, but you're stepping right up to the edge and you're like, I'm going to jump across this line right now.
Yeah.
And of course, you have your faith. You're waiting on God to move and do great things for you. That's always a great thing to have. I always look back into the past and look back on what I was taught and my belief, and having God pave the way for me too. So you have all the right ingredients to move forward, I think.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much. I feel like, yet again, if y'all want to know one of the reasons why I'm with this wonderful man, it's because he coaches me. And I feel like I was just sitting in a coaching client seat listening to a coach. Everything you just described with your past clients and watching them with their transitions of the podcast and the business and the roles that they were stepping into post podcast production and saying, I'm going to put a bow on this. I'm stepping into something new. I have not heard you say that out loud. So I feel like that was a relief for me. And especially because you have produced hundreds, if not close to 1,000 different podcast shows these past 7+ years. So you've seen quite a bit of change among your clients. And so for you to see that pattern, for you to share that with me, it gives me a bigger scope outside of my little corner of the world. So thank you for sharing that, because I haven't heard you. I'm sure I've heard things like that in passing over dinner or, but actually hearing that, sitting in the quietness of our house and just hearing that, it's like, oh, wow, that is so profound.
And the passion behind creating a podcast like this and giving information for free and creating an audience, creating I don't like the word tribe. For some reason, but people say it all the time, creating a tribe. But really, that's really what it is you're creating a community. And I think you're not leaving them behind. They're just going to watch you on the other end of what's going to happen. And it happens all the time. A lot of them don't stop because they don't want to do it no more. They want to continue, but they just have bigger plans. And the plan is like, producing content is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, we're having a conversation about this a lot.
Yeah.
And I want the audience to know, Heidi's audience to know, that this isn't the first time that Heidi wanted to mention that she wanted to stop the podcast. There's many, many times where she thought around even in the 200s or 100s that maybe she wanted to put the brakes on or slow it down a lot. But something kept happening where somebody came in and said, we need you to do this. And
I wanted to. I wanted to do it.
Right. And it brought it back to life again. And it was great. And we knew why it was happening. Hindsight, we're like, oh, wow, all these great experiences. The podcast has taken us on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And it is taken us to many different foreign countries.
Yeah.
Because of the podcast.
Yeah.
And when you look at those experiences going back, it's like, whoa, we didn't realize that we were going to do these fun things. And it was work. It wasn't like blowing in the wind and this stuff was happening. They were all planned. They were all talked about. There was a lot of work going behind it. And so that was exciting. And I wanted to make the audience know that Heidi was going to pull the brakes a long time ago. But right now, I guess episode 360, pulling the brakes right about now and really having kind of a drift into a slow stop and really just letting it coast on its own momentum now is probably the best thing to do right now. And I agree with you totally that these changes are a must. They must happen. And I think that that's the reality that we're stepping into right now.
Very well said. Yeah. And thank you for bringing up the fact, a little bit of behind the scenes. I don't think I've ever physically out loud said in a produced podcast episode, hey guys, I wanted to stop this thing years ago, because it was intimate. It was not a secret, but it was something that I was working through, but now I can be candid about that because of where we are, and showcasing that to you for your creative endeavors. You may start something and have certain expectations of a project, of an album, of a degree, but it could morph into something you never dreamed possible. It could take on a completely different life force than what you had initially planned. And that's the beautiful thing of being a creative artist. We can show up to our manuscript paper and write down an arrangement, a composition. As a songwriter, you have a certain idea in mind. And the next thing you know, the words, the lyrics, the harmonies, they take its own shape. And you're like, oh, look at that. That's not how I heard it in my head initially. Same thing with a book. Same thing with recording an album. And my creative outlet for these past 7 years has been this podcast. And I didn't know that my dissertation was going to then lead me to beefing up my resume and getting knocks on my door for job applications and for job positions. I didn't know that initial 8-part series, those two, remember it was like 2 4-part episodes. One was building out a studio, and then the other was all on health. So those initial 8 episodes, I didn't know that was going to take me around the world, like Eric said, literally to Greece, Romania, Bulgaria, Finland, Utah, different parts of the States, working with amazing sponsors and guests who believed in me and who believed in the community and the content. It took a life of its own, is what I'm trying to say. So being candid about the process, being candid and telling y'all I wanted to stop a million times. Why? Because I cared about it and I wanted it to produce something. I wanted it to have weight. I wanted it to have meaning. And your projects, sometimes you have semi-control of how they turn out, and sometimes you have no control of how they turn out. And it's not just the project itself or the creative process, but it's life and circumstances.
I like that organic life that it takes.
Yeah.
And it creates itself. It creates what it's going to be. And by the way, I just wanted to jokingly say that this was the longest running dissertation I've ever seen in my life. But
yeah.
Then again, it is probably true at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, and I came across one of my friends who I went to tech with. Do you remember Black Horse?
Yeah.
I saw him at one of the NFA Flute conventions. He's a composer. And he saw my booth at Carolyn Nussbaum's booth. I think that was Phoenix, Arizona. And he was like, wow, is this the thing that you graduated with at Tech, from Tech? I'm like, yep. And he goes, how are you feeling? I'm like, oh, I'm great. And he's like, no, how are you feeling about everything? And you're still producing episodes for your original dissertation. And the way he framed it, I was like, oh, I guess I kind of am in a weird way. I've been seeing it as my business, which it has been. But I'm like, you're right. It's still rooted from that original project. And he was like, girl, you have got to be tired. He's like, that's the longest running dissertation ever.
Wow.
And
I didn't know that that's what he said.
Yeah.
But look at this. Look at what's going on.
It was a perspective that I knew, but until somebody actually outside of myself articulated that out loud,
right,
and I heard it outside of myself, I was like, yeah, oh my gosh.
You need to wrap this up.
I was like, yeah. And so that's the amazing part of creation. And so I just want to candidly show y'all behind the scenes of Sometimes, your creative process, it flows. Sometimes the outcomes flow. Sometimes it goes in the lane and the trajectory that you want it to go and that you foresee. And other times it's friction. Sometimes there's oil and water. Sometimes it takes a life of its own and there's a mystery to the creative process and to life itself. And just like life ebbs and flows, right? And so if you are pulling out your hair like I did in a few different seasons with Flute 360, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily doing something wrong or bad or whatever adjective you want to use. It's just sometimes the way it is.
Right.
And I think just saying that out loud as creatives is very freeing and needed because we care so much and we are so passionate about our creations that sometimes we need to take 10 steps back and look at it organically and go, oh yeah, it's a life force thing. Oh yeah, at least for me.
You're not wrong in that sense because in the podcast world, working with a lot of clients, and I'm talking about thousands up to now, they have this idea and this is their baby. Mm-hmm. It's their digital baby. They don't want anybody else's hands on it because it runs the way they want it to run. But when they ask for the help and you're trying to create with them, you can totally see how much they love it, how much it means to them. It's like that book that keeps writing itself and they don't know when to put a cadence into it, and say, hey, we're going to kind of pause right here. And I guess that's kind of what you're doing if you really think about it. And it's been 7 years. Mm-hmm. You're coming up to your 8th, what would be your 8th, but I think it is a good time. And you never know. You never know what could happen.
Yeah.
Because it's happened before. You never know what could happen.
It could easily boomerang right back into my lap next week. And I'm like, here we go.
Right. And this will probably never publish.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And yeah, it has been 7 full years. And so also to be candid, that's a great topic that you just brought up. How do you know when a creative project should be paused or come to an end? Is it a final cadence? Is it a half cadence? I wasn't expecting these musical references. I mean, I would love to, we know and we can explain why we have come to this conclusion that Flute 360 podcast needs to be cadenced in this season. And we can talk about why. But this is an overarching topic that we could unpack a little bit more. How do you know as the creator that your creation has taken shape and it's ready to move on to the next?
Yeah, I like that. And I think it's exactly how you're feeling right now. Exactly all the things that are happening in your life, what you want to do. You want to help me in Red House Productions. You want to grow certain things in that area. And how do you do that when this is there? It's like what they say about multitasking. You can't multitask perfectly.
Yeah,
There's no
can't.
way. And right now in this time, economically, a lot of things have changed. People have changed. The audience has probably pretty much the same, but their ideal things have probably changed too. And people follow the economics where it's going to help them too. And so it's because of these things change, I have to pay attention to these certain things, whether that's surviving, putting your money where it's most important, or just investing in other things that are going to keep you afloat through these times. And definitely we've seen changes in our businesses through these times right now, especially in the last 2 years. And we know for sure that there's some certain things that we have to take care of in a different fashion than we used to, Some things really, really good. Some things awesome. And some things oh, wow, we really can't do that no more,
So the different signs and indicators. So if your life, for example, is a car and you're driving on your path towards your mission, towards the destination, that car dashboard gives you different indicators of oil, washer fluid, gas, temperature, and you're looking at that car dashboard and looking at all of these different levels and going, okay, this is good. Okay, this, can be tweaked a little. Oh, okay. Red alert, pause, emergency brake. So those different indications that are coming up on the console feed information and help you gauge, literally gauge, where you are in the landscape of things.
Right.
And so for you as the flutist, taking a peek into our world and noticing like, oh, why is Heidi and Eric, why are they pausing the podcast? We are being super candid and saying we're looking at those different indicators and going, oh, we are gauging the levels. And yes, we don't have a crystal ball, but looking at these different levels helps us to indicate where to apply the brakes, where to apply the gas in these different areas of our life. And hopefully that sentiment and that observation that we're going through can help you in your flute lane as well. Because we're doing this together,
Right.
Like year 7 is a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know this, and this is something I'm still learning. I'm not into numerology, but the number 7 in the Bible is a holy number of completion. The number 8 from the Bible means new beginnings. So not that I was looking at the numbers and going, oh, okay, year 7, done. It was more or less like, oh, things are shifting in my business. Things are shifting in my other businesses because I'm a serial entrepreneur. That was one indication. And then it was finances. Like right now, economics and the economy is basically crap right now. Inflation is at an all-time high. Massive companies out there are declaring bankruptcy. I don't know if you just saw that Heinz, the ketchup company, they declared bankruptcy like a month ago, I think. So that's an indicator. Looking at the trends and what's happening in Red House Productions and J&K Productions, that's an indicator. Me feeling a pull, I don't know the answers to this yet, but me feeling a pull to some branding where maybe it's not just Flute 360, but something like a bigger umbrella of 360, because so many people have been coming to me and saying, you're more than just flute. And so that also gauges and kind of tickles my curiosity fancy and going, ooh, what could that be? So creating space, I need to wrap up and put a bow on one massive, beautiful project like this podcast and put a pause on it and put a bow on it so I have capacity and energy freed up and that space freed up to support my other businesses, to explore new lanes of rebranding into 360 something. And Eric and I have family goals, and those are all the indicators coming up on our car dashboard. And because of that, then other indications like, oh, wow, it's the year 7. As believers, that is significant to us. That could be a validation from God over here going, yep, check. You're not crazy. Yep, you're seeing the signs correctly. And I even had a really awesome believing Christian flute friend call me about 2-3 weeks ago, out of the blue. He had no idea these different things were happening in the background in our own private life. And he just prayed over me. And all these things that Eric and I were seeing, feeling, thinking came up in that prayer. And so I'm very thankful for that prophetic word. And that was another confirmation from God that I could put it down. And that was very freeing and very liberating to go, oh, okay, here's some external validation as well outside of our little family. So all those little things, hopefully you can see our example and then apply it and take out the big nuggets and apply it to your world. If you ever find yourself to be in a transitory season, a shift, a pivot, and you're like, I'm scared. Yeah, I'm scared too. That's a thing, but it's a mystery. So with mysterious gifts, it's a surprise. So it can also be exciting, exhilarating, fun. And we forget that side because we're trying to protect ourselves and we're trying to not play safe, but we want to be taken care of and we want to be supported. And when things change, it feels like sometimes it could easily feel like, for me at least, the rug is being pulled out from underneath my feet. But that's mixing it up and that's life. And I'm really blessed and I'm really thankful.
I will say that some of the most exciting things that ever happened to me in my life were not having any expectations and not even knowing what was going to happen. Sometimes these fun experiences that you have in life are without even understanding where you're going to go. Not knowing sometimes is the best thing. And that's all you have is your prayers and moving forward.
Yeah. And that sentiment I shared with my girlfriends in a recent mastermind. I said, I was talking to them about this pivot and I teared up a little bit because I was being real with them. And they asked, because they know how much Eric is such an integral part into my life. They said, well, what does Eric say? And I'm like, Eric is, there's this analogy of like talking to the wind. Eric is very much like, let's go with the wind and see where the breeze and the wind takes us. And I'm very much like, hey, wind, this is where we are going to go. So Eric and I are very bipolar opposites in that regard. And you balanced me out. So thank you. As much as I say, like, it makes me cringe, I really deep down appreciate it because it balances me out. It's these soft, gentle reminders that I really need. And so they laughed because they knew both Eric and I very well. And they were like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And they're like, yeah, like just take on Eric's spirit in that regard. Like what he's saying is not having expectations. What he's saying is have fun with it. Like don't see it as this drudgery thing. See it as where is the wind taking us, and live in the moment in that way. And so I've gotten better throughout the 20 years we've been together, I would say. I'm not so uptight as I used to be when I was 20 years younger, but there's definitely room for growth in that regard. Just letting your hair down. Sometimes it's easy in certain areas of my life. In other areas, it's like, I want to have control. But the funny thing is, I know we don't have control. we are human beings, so it's fun to laugh at myself in that way because I hear myself. I know I contradict myself, but it's good. It's all really good. And so, yeah, it's when you said, hey, Heidi, like have dreams, but don't necessarily like expect a certain outcome. Like
Right.
Let that go.
Right.
They were basically in that call walking me through. And that was my point. They were basically encouraging me and they were saying, what if the pause, what if the break on the 360th episode is a part of Flute 360's narrative? To me, it was like one and done, X marks the spot, done. But they were saying, look at the totality of the story. What if that was supposed to be a part of its narrative? And when they said it like that, I was like, oh, maybe that was the connection I made to what you were saying. It's different. It's a different structuring, but it's the same perspective.
Yeah. A lot of things make sense
Yeah.
later on when you look back in hindsight. Yeah. That's why they say hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this next step.
Yeah, me too.
Next step. Speaking of the next step and moving into another part of this part of the podcast is I wanted to ask you, what were your favorite things about it? What kind of things did you take away from this that maybe a couple of things that really stood out to you? Besides having great clients, not great clients, but great guests on the show. I mean, certainly
Great clients too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what were those things? Because, I mean, you can name a guess if you wanted to, but what was pivotal or like really shine through for you?
That's a great question. And that could be a whole nother hour conversation in of itself. And I know I probably won't do your question justice because I never would want to misrepresent the experience. And I just want to wholeheartedly like throw all of my entity and my truth into that answer. I want to represent it well, because I'm sure my answer right now would not be the same answer, in a year from now with more time and space between. But in this moment, a few things come to my mind. And that is, I'm really proud of the work. And that's coming from not dissertation 2018 to 2025, 7 years. This degree and this career path means more to me than I think anybody realizes, because when I was about 10, 11, 12 years old, and I met Dr. Diane Boyd Schultz at a flute camp in Charleston, Illinois, EIU, E-I-E-I-E-I-U. There was like this cute little song. That's where I fell in love with music making and playing my flute. And that's where I met my lifelong best friend, Afton Taylor, and my most favorite teacher, Diane Boyd. And that was such a pivotal moment for me in my life, because something sparked inside of me saying, I want to impact other young ladies like how Diane impacted me, how Karis impacted me, the pianist from the church, how Afton impacted me, how Mrs. Reinhardt, my first flute teacher, impacted me. And at 11 years old, I said, I want to be Dr. Heidi one day. And to see my work represented with a piece of certificate, this dissertation, my playing, my touring, my students, my clients, seeing that all together in its totality, it's like, wow, I've worked on that my entire life, and these are happy tears. Because never in a million years did I think I would be here. When I said at 11, I want to be Dr. Heidi, never in a million years could I have seen where we are now. Never. My idea of how to use that degree and what I wanted to do with it was completely different than what I got to do. And that's amazing. And I think that's the beauty of how God works. So that's what it means to me. It's not just the 7 years that I've learned a lot through the actual medium of podcasting, the art of podcasting, but it's the totality of going back to little Chicago and Heidi at 10 years old and her saying, I'm going to be Dr. Heidi one day. And here I am at 40. So it's been 30 years, And I'm just so grateful. I'm really grateful for the people who believed in me. I'm really grateful for the people who blessed me, who molded me, who believed in me, because that's fuel to my fire for helping others. And for God giving me the specific testimony that He's given me to pour into others and show His love through their different seasons and how they need support is completely mind-blowing to me. Like, completely mind-blowing. Specific women who come in my path from the podcast, and there are also women who deal with infertility or health woes, like specifically their back, like I did when I was in high school, or carpal tunnel, or an autoimmune disease, or pivoting, not knowing what to do with their degree, the excitement of, deciding who their spouse is going to be, everything, the highs and lows and everything in between. And when you hear these men and women and their stories and what they want to share with me, it's like, whoa, pinch me. That's why I went through those seasons. So I could learn certain lessons, so I could be shaped a certain way. So that way I know exactly what to say to this person right here and right now and help them with maybe help that maybe I received in some form, or maybe help that I received because I had to learn something on my own or something God needed to teach me. But it gets shared, it gets passed down, that's why I love education. You get to be a part of that person for the rest of their life, because hopefully that nugget stays with them. So that's my answer. And of course, I want to honor the 7 years in the sense of all the fantastic podcast listeners who downloaded the episodes, who wrote to me, who wrote to the guests, who wrote to the sponsors and said thank you. That piece of gratitude and you sharing your world with me is by far one of the biggest joys in my life. The sponsors who believed in the platform, who supported me, who actually wrote a check and said, here, use this for audio production, use this for your website, use this to keep the content coming. That generosity blows my mind. The guests who were so willing to be so candid and transparent in sharing their flute stories with the community, that is such an overabundance of giving of themselves in such an unselfish way that blows my mind. So listeners, sponsors, guests, you, my awesome audio engineer, you never once complained when I said, hey, hon, I need this like quickly edited, like now. And you did it, you know? And show note writers, oh my goodness, my first show note writer, one of my very first flute students and I were actually at Texas Tech at the same time together. She's no longer Boyle. She just got married, but Miss Caitlin Boyle. Sometimes your sister would edit my episodes for me, Annie. So it's a team effort between producers, editors, sponsors, guests, show note writers. It takes a village. And so I'm really appreciative and grateful for that.
Right. That's a very thoughtful and profound answer, I think. And yeah, it was a very good experience. I did learn a lot working on this podcast and applying what I learned here to what I do in our business. It's definitely a good teacher. What I've done here in the beginning is exactly what I do for those who are starting. And some are sunsetting their podcasts too, you know? So it definitely is an interesting journey. And that's what I taken away from this too, besides all the great knowledge that a lot of the guests had applied to the podcast and sharing on behalf of the podcast and themselves. It was amazing. So I do agree with you on that part. The sponsors, the guests, people randomly emailing in and lifting your spirits when you need it, you know, and some have really articulated how it changed them and what it did in their lives when they were at a low point or just confused altogether. That's exciting to hear. And I think those kinds of things are important to hear. And I'm not saying it's going to stop. I'm pretty sure you'll keep hearing it as long as the podcast is still in the podcast store, you know? So I'm pretty sure you'll keep getting those kinds of emails as we continue. And like I said, who knows what could happen in a few months. Yeah. Somebody could have a great idea and Heidi be right back on the mic.
And everyone's like, I thought you just said 2 weeks ago. But sometimes that's how quick life moves.
Right.
I mean, every time we wanted to put down, remember in Bulgaria at that tall kitchen countertop table where we looked out that patio door and we always saw those Euro Jays in the tree? I remember vividly like saying, okay, I'm pausing this. I'm frustrated. I need some space. I need to heal. I need some breathing room. And the second I did, my computer dinged with a message. And I pulled up my laptop screen. And there was an email there from Beatrice, the artistic director of Tampere Flute Fest. And she's like, hey, Heidi, I had this great idea. I'm like, tell me all about it, girl. And next thing you know, it came back to me within hours. So yeah, we say that, but no, thank you for sharing what you've learned too. And I love how your growth as an engineer and the lessons you took from this digital baby has fed into Red House Productions.
Right.
And its clients.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. So, yeah, I guess on that note, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in to yet another podcast episode. Thank you for the friendship. Thank you for the relationships. Thank you for the conversations. And until next time. Before you go, I want to say thank you for listening, for growing alongside this podcast, and for being part of the Flute 360 community in whatever way you've shown up. Even though the podcast production is pausing, Flute 360 itself is very much alive. And the best way to stay connected moving forward is through the Flute 360 newsletter. That's where I share updates, reflections, freebies, events, and special opportunities sent straight to your inbox once a month. You can sign up on my main website at HeidiKBegay.com on the right-hand side of the homepage. Just click the tab that says subscribe. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting this space live in your world. And until we cross paths again, take good care of yourself and your artistry. Let's talk about flute.